Think about someone in, the Grand Theft Auto world you felt you had completely figured out. Maybe a character like Ken Rosenberg. Tommy Vercetti's lawyer, right? Famously neurotic, always kind of flustered, barely holding it together. We mostly think his story is pretty straightforward, fell from grace, the vices got him. But what if that simple narrative was actually like a cover? What if it was this brilliant strategic move hiding right there in plain sight? So today we're doing a deep dive into Ken Rosenberg's really surprising journey. I mean, from those frantic days in Vice City with Tommy Vercetti to somehow ending up managing Caligula's casino in Las Venturas. And our main source for this, well, the ideas come from these compelling excerpts. It's called Ken Rosenberg, Vercetti's Covert Casino Operation. Our mission here is to unpack this really fascinating theory from these sources. It doesn't just, challenge what you thought you knew about Tommy and Ken's relationship. It suggests the strategic depth to Tommy's character that, honestly, we might have totally missed. Okay, let's unpack this. So let's set the scene a bit. After all that chaos in 1986, Tommy Vercetti isn't just some powerful guy in Vice City. No, he rules the place, an absolute iron grip. He systematically took out rivals like Ricardo Diaz, dealt with Lance Vance's betrayal decisively, and he consolidated control over, well, pretty much everything. Drugs, yeah, but also real estate, business fronts. He built a serious empire, and who was right there through that whole dramatic rise? Ken Rosenberg. He was loyal, sure, you have to give him that, but also, notoriously neurotic, always on edge and really struggling with addiction. He was Tommy's lawyer, though, helped him navigate all the legal stuff and the less legal stuff to survive and, well, thrive. But then, fast forward, we see Ken again in San Andreas, right? Las Venturas, managing Caligula's casino of all places. And the official story, the one we've kind of accepted, is just that Tommy fired him. Why? Because his drug habits got completely out of control. And that sounds plausible for Ken, doesn't it? Like, yeah, that tracks, just another rock bottom moment for him. But here's the twist. What if that separation, that supposed firing, wasn't real? What if it was actually this elaborate, calculated setup? Like, planned by Tommy himself, a way to plant a trusted insider right in the middle of enemy territory. Okay, that's where it gets really interesting.
It absolutely does. This core theory, the one laid out in these sources, it suggests Ken wasn't fired. Not really. Instead, think of it like he was strategically placed, positioned as a trusted operative, embedded deep within Liberty City Mafia territory. And to understand Tommy's motivation, why he'd do something so complex, you got to rewind to '86. After he executed Sonny Forelli, Tommy instantly became a huge target, not just for local Vice City gangs anymore, no. We're talking the bigger syndicates, especially the Forelli family, still powerful back in Liberty City. They'd definitely be looking for, revenge, retribution. But Tommy, instead of going for an all-out war, which would be messy and expensive, he chose something way more cunning, a strategy of slow, calculated infiltration, not with force, but with deception. He was playing the long game, you see.
That's a massive gamble, though, isn't it? I mean, why Ken Rosenberg? Seriously. With all his flaws, the neuroses, the drug issues, why pick him for such a delicate, super important covert op? Why not, a typical tough guy? A reliable enforcer just seems counterintuitive.
But that's the genius of it, apparently. What the sources really highlight are Ken's pre-existing connections, critical ones. Before Vice City, before Tommy even, Ken actually worked as a legal fixer for the Forelli family. Yeah. So that past association, it made him this kind of bridge between Tommy and those Liberty City power players. That history didn't just make him a candidate, it made him arguably the perfect candidate to go undercover. And his new role wasn't as a lawyer, right? That might draw attention. No, he's a manager at Caligula's casino. And importantly, that casino. It's a joint operation. Leone, Forelli, Sindaco family's the big three from Liberty City. So this position gives him incredible access. He could observe their inner workings, their money, talk to all of them daily. It's an intelligence goldmine, and nobody suspects a thing.
And that public excuse, Tommy firing him for the drug problem, it's just so believable, isn't it? It perfectly explains why he'd leave Vice City suddenly. Doesn't raise any red flags with Tommy's enemies. It's, wow, pretty smart.
It really is quite clever. Tommy didn't need a spy with guns or muscle for this particular job. He needed someone unassuming, almost forgettable, someone who could just slip through conversations, pick up info, report back. And Ken's whole persona, unthreatening, insecure, easily underestimated, that made him ideal. The mafia bosses. They likely never, ever suspect him of being a spy. They would probably just laugh him off, right? That pathetic, washed-up lawyer.
Yeah, who's going to look at Ken Rosenberg and think, secret agent? Nobody. And the theory gets even stronger when you look at some of the supporting details, the piecing together clues. Suddenly, Kent Paul shows up. By Ken's side in Las Venturas. Kent Paul, a very known associate of Tommy's from Vice City. So you gotta ask, why is he there? Doesn't make much sense. Unless, maybe, he's part of the same operation, like Ken's handler or something. And then comes the biggest piece, maybe. The huge event that seems totally separate at first. Carl Johnson, CJ and Wizzy planning that audacious heist on Caligula's casino itself.
Exactly. And this is where Ken's behavior gets really, really telling. During the whole setup for the heist, he never actually stops CJ or Wizzy. He doesn't blow the whistle. In fact, it almost feels like he's passively allowing it to happen, like he's aware of some bigger picture. A plan way beyond just robbing one casino. See, to understand the real goal here, you need to realize Caligula's isn't just any casino. It's this massive symbol, a symbol of the Liberty City Mafia's wealth, their power, their big move into San Andreas. So, by creating the conditions for this heist to succeed, Tommy doesn't just get revenge on the Forellas for Sonny. He hits them hard financially, cripples them, maybe, and maybe even more importantly, publicly humiliates them on a huge scale. And the crucial part, Tommy achieves all this without getting his own hands dirty. No open war declared. He just orchestrates the scenario. He lets outsiders CJ, Woozy, the Triads do the actual dirty work. They hit Caligula's, and Tommy's enemies basically bleed out from the inside, orchestrated from afar.
Right. And Ken's role in all this, during and after the heist, is key to the whole theory. He's perfectly positioned to both, sort of, enable the heist, let it happen, and then make sure he gets out safely afterward. And the sources mention he basically disappears again right after the job is done, vanishes, probably sent somewhere secure by Tommy, right? To protect his identity, keep the whole covert operation under wraps.
And if you step back and connect this to the bigger picture, the whole strategy really resonates thematically, doesn't it? Think back to Vice City's final mission, keep your friends close. That title alone tells you a lot about Tommy's philosophy on loyalty, especially after Lance Vance's betrayal. That must have hit him hard.
Yeah, made paranoid by Lance turning on him, Tommy would have become hyper-aware of who he could really trust. And Ken. Despite all his very obvious flaws, his addictions, his panic attacks, he never once turned on Tommy. Even when he was getting mocked or sidelined, Ken stayed loyal. So if anyone earned a new, crucial role in a bigger long-term strategy, maybe it was him. It really paints Tommy as incredibly cunning, doesn't it? Much more than just a thug who rose to the top. Choosing Ken. Prioritizing that quiet manipulation, that intelligence gathering, instead of just sending in more muscle. It shows a deep understanding of strategy, of how people work, of exploiting perceived weaknesses. He wasn't just a brute. He was a strategic mastermind.
And that brings up a really fascinating point about the whole Grand Theft Auto universe, doesn't it? I mean, this world is practically built on deception, on long-term manipulation, these hidden alliances. Think about characters like Toreno or Tenpenny, or even Donald Love. They all operate from the shadows, pulling strings behind the scenes. So why wouldn't Tommy Vercetti? He's described as one of the most cunning protagonists in the whole series history. Why wouldn't he operate the same way? Why risk open war, send an army, when he could just send, well, the seemingly insignificant Ken Rosenberg to achieve so much more, completely under the radar?
So it really boils down to this question, doesn't it? Was Ken Rosenberg just that washed-up lawyer, ruthlessly dumped by Tommy because his problems got too big? Or, as these sources strongly suggest, was he actually Tommy's secret agent? A perfectly placed operative embedded deep in enemy territory, helping orchestrate one of the biggest hits on Liberty City's powerhouses without anyone ever suspecting his real allegiance.
Well, the evidence laid out in these sources, it really does point overwhelmingly towards the latter. It's suggesting meticulously planned covert operation. Yeah. With Ken Rosenberg as this incredibly unlikely but absolutely essential linchpin.
So what does this all mean for you? You know, as someone who's played these games, who thought they knew these characters, it fundamentally challenges how we see them, right? It highlights this incredible strategic depth hidden in the narrative. Maybe the stories we thought were straightforward have way more layers, more hidden plans than we ever really imagined.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. In that chaotic, dangerous world of Grand Theft Auto, maybe it's the quiet ones, the ones you easily dismiss. Maybe they're often the deadliest. It should make you wonder, perhaps, what other seemingly simple events or minor characters across the series, what else might just be part of a much grander, more deceptive, and truly brilliant plan?
Makes you think, doesn't it? What stands out to you from this deep dive? What connections are you making now?